I am your host, and tonight's tales come from our subscribers. First up, we have The House That Ate People by Mr. Bacon Hair. I was 9 years old at the time. My sister and I used to walk home from school every day along the river that ran through our city. We would often skip stones across its surface while making our way home. One day we decided that instead of walking all the way home, we were going to run and make it a race. In our excitement, we took a shortcut through the park. But when we got to the other side, we realized with growing horror that we were too far away from home to go back. It was also getting dark, so my sister suggested that we find somewhere to hide and wait for a car to drive by so we could flag it down for a ride. As we hurried to find somewhere to hide, I saw an opening between some bushes and yelled for my sister to look. She stopped and I said, "Quick, let's hide here." When she went into the bushes, though, they started to close behind her. In a panic, I pushed them open and called out for her. All I saw was the top of her head and the roots of the bushes scratching at her neck as the branches tried to close over her body. I grabbed her hand and pulled her out, then ran off as fast as I could with her in tow. When we finally found a street lamp, we turned around to look for the bushes, but it was nowhere to be seen. To this day, I have never forgotten the horror of seeing those branches reaching for her. The scariest part, however, is that when I told my parents what happened, they just laughed and said that there was no such place in the park. They even went to the park themselves to show me there was nothing there. Yet I knew what I had seen. Many months later, after a heavy snowstorm, my sister and I were sent out to shovel the snow from the sidewalk in front of our house. As we worked, we looked for patches of dirt so we could practice skipping stones across the sidewalk, which was more difficult than regular skipping. Suddenly, my sister stopped and stared at the ground. "Look," she said, pointing at a small gap in the snow. There was a small dirt patch hidden under the snow. Excited, we quickly cleared the snow away and found that we could actually skip stones quite well on this patch. We were so engrossed in our game that neither of us noticed our mother standing at the window until she called us in for lunch. After we finished eating, my mom asked us what we had been doing outside. When we told her we were playing, she seemed disappointed and told us to go clean our boots before going back out. Then she went back to the window and continued staring out at the yard. My sister and I looked at each other, then burst out laughing and ran back outside. As soon as we were out, we raced to the dirt patch and started skipping stones. We didn't care that our boots were dirty. We were too busy trying to see who could skip the most stones without stopping. We must have been out there for hours because the sun had already started to set by the time we came back inside. When we walked in, our mom wasn't anywhere to be seen. We called out for her, but there was no reply. Then we heard a noise coming from the basement. As we stood at the top of the stairs listening, the sound grew louder. Whatever it was, it sounded like our mother dragging herself up the stairs. Slowly, we started to climb the stairs to see what was making the noise. As we made our way up, the sound stopped. Then we heard a crash from one of the bedrooms. My sister and I exchanged terrified glances and froze. My mom had always told us to never go into her room, but now we were curious about what had happened to her. Slowly, we started to creep toward the bedroom door. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the house. My sister and I screamed ourselves and ran for the basement door. As I reached for the doorknob, something grabbed my foot and yanked me back. I turned and saw the carpet where the stairs should have been. Terrified, I turned back to run, but tripped on the bottom stair and landed at the bottom of the stairs. Dazed, I looked up and saw that the stairs had vanished. I struggled to my feet and stumbled into the living room, only to trip over my feet and fall again. As I lay there on the floor, I saw the bushes from the park reflected in the window behind me. For a moment, I could have sworn the branches moved, but when I blinked, they were still. I pushed myself to my feet and ran into the basement. As I fumbled for the light switch, I could have sworn that I heard a voice say, "Finally, some fresh meat." Then the lights flickered on. I stood there in the darkness of the basement, unsure if what I had just heard had really been real or not. Then I heard footsteps coming down the stairs. It was then that I knew the house had taken my mother. I don't know how long I stayed in that basement, but eventually I got tired and went to sleep. In the morning, when my dad left for work, I called the police and told them what had happened. Of course, they didn't believe me, and I couldn't blame them. What kid wouldn't try to hide their parents when they disappeared? After the police left, I went back upstairs and made myself breakfast. As I ate, I stared out the window into the backyard, wondering what had happened to my mother. Just then, I saw a movement in the bushes outside. I jumped and spilled my cereal as I watched the branches move. Then I saw a face peering out at me. It was my mother, or what was left of her. Her eyes were blank and soulless as she stared at me. Then she opened her mouth and screamed, "More flesh, more flesh." Then she was gone. I slammed the window shut and backed away from it. Then I heard a noise from behind me. Slowly, I turned and saw that the wall had started to crumble and what was left of the basement stairs had appeared behind me. With shaking hands, I approached them and stepped onto the first step. It felt cold beneath my feet, as if someone had just walked on it. But no one was there, and so I began to descend the stairs. Each step felt colder than the last, as if the house itself was trying to lure me in. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, I was in a dark, dank basement. The air was heavy and stale, and I could feel something watching me. I started to walk forward, drawn by an unseen force. As I did, the ground beneath my feet started to shake. I stumbled and fell to my knees, then looked up to see the walls of the basement crumbling away to reveal a vast, gaping maw filled with rows upon rows of sharp, glistening teeth. A low growl rumbled from its depths, and I knew I was in the presence of something truly evil. But it wasn't the house. It was something else entirely. Something that had taken my mother and was now reaching for me. With a final, deafening roar, it lunged towards me, and I screamed as the darkness consumed me. And that concludes tonight's tales. I hope you enjoyed them. If you did, please remember to leave a like and a comment for more tales. And as always, I'm your host. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.